Well, hi, everybody. We're excited to be here today. We're here from Creator Co. My name is Rob Dawson, Chief Strategy Officer.
My name is Vinod Varma, CEO.
And we're excited to share with you some learnings around the creator economy and how to become an influencer. We're delighted that we're joined today by one of our ambassadors, Kahlea Wade. Hi, Kahlea. How are you doing today?
Doing great. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. Awesome.
You're the star.
You're the star, right? Exactly. Um, well, Kahlea, would be great just to hear a bit about. I know everybody'd be interested to hear a bit about yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, your journey is super unique, and I think you've accomplished a lot as a creator, and there's a lot of learnings to come out of this session. So it'd be great to maybe get some background on you and how you came to where you are today, and working with some awesome brands and now talent as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the kind words. So yeah, like they said, my name is Kahlea. I actually started as a creator 10 years ago. I can't believe it's a decade. I'm only 27 though. I promise I'm not that old. I just started really young when I was
Subtle
17.
flex there on the age. Yeah, subtle flex. Yeah.
Listen, I say a decade and I'm like, hold on, that feels like way too long of a time. But I got started when I was in college and I began with a blog. And so I started talking about kind of fashion. I'm a big nerd. So it was how to be successful in college as well. And through that, I started to learn about monetization. And you could do that through affiliate marketing, which I did. And I was interested in that. But then I also found the opportunity to work with brand partners. And so through different experimentation and exploring in that, I started to develop a strategy on how I could specifically pitch and negotiate with partnerships. And at that time, it was 2015, so it wasn't very common. And so through that, as I started to land those partnerships, being young, not having a big audience, I had like 600 followers at the time, and I was growing pretty slowly. When I kind of hit to like 800 followers, I got my first paid partnership. And so people started asking me about how I was doing that. So I said, you know what? I want to share the knowledge. I want to share and educate and help other creators really win in this space. So I started to add in more education to the content I was creating around, beauty and fashion and college things. And through that education, I was teaching other creators how they could find success in this space as well. So over the last decade, I've really focused on a lot of creator education. I also do a lot of consulting brand side for influencer marketing. And then 2 years ago, I actually founded a talent agency. So now I also represent creators that are full-time in the space that are earning 100K or more through brand partnerships. And we manage all of their partnerships. So we facilitate all negotiations, we handle the contracts, we handle the networking on their behalf. So it's really fun. It's definitely been a whirlwind of a journey, but it's led me here and I'm very grateful.
We're grateful to have you.
Yeah, it's amazing. What a great journey. And I'm sure a lot of the people watching today are really, inspired by that. And they want to understand, how they could do that themselves. One of the things that I know you talk about is like developing your personal brand. And tell us what you mean by that and why is that important?
Yeah.
And can Rob and I do the same thing?
Absolutely. If you stay tuned for these tips, then you can do it too.
All right.
So yeah, when it comes to a personal brand, one of my favorite definitions of this actually comes from Rory Vaden. He says that your personal brand is the digitization of your reputation. So truly, when it comes to the online space and influencer marketing, your personal brand is your online resume. It's how you're showing up online. It's what's making you stand out. It's how someone who doesn't know you, could kind of describe you because you're developing common themes and stories throughout your content. And so it is that overarching theme of like, who are you? What makes you you as a creator? It's just the heart and soul of your business. And as we know, with how crazy platforms can get, they could be here one day and gone the next. Your personal brand is the foundation that no matter where you show up, it's consistent across the entire board. And it's something that even supersedes the way that you're showing up and how you're creating on social media, because it can also translate into, more business things. Like for me, it looked like starting a talent agency. For other people, it might be a talk show. It might be a product line. It might be doing equity in a certain company that aligns with your personal brand. So it really goes beyond just how you're showing up, but it is truly that digitization of your reputation online that goes overarching into what makes you you.
Amazing. Yeah. And, I guess people, you want them to focus in a certain area and to kind of be known for a certain skill set or style or things like that. Like, tell us a bit about that. Like, why is it important to develop your particular skill set?
Yeah. So I like that you're saying skill set too. And you kind of know the background of like how I prefer, focusing on your monetizable skills versus just focusing on one specific area that you're talking about, like the niche. I think that there's such value in it being a niche, like there being something that you are known for, especially when you're just starting out. If you're brand new and you're just trying to get into this space, there is value in that conversation of where are you focusing? For me, when I started out, I had kind of 3 areas I was focusing on: fashion, beauty, and college success. And so in those, people started to kind of get to know what that looked like. I was experimenting, I was exploring, and then I started to narrow down into creator education. And so that kind of became my called niche. And with that, what was really interesting is as the influencer marketing realm started to develop, the only discourse that was happening online is just pick one thing and stick with it, pick one thing and stick with it for the rest of your creator career. And I just don't agree with that. And I know that's not a lot of people like that I say that, but I think that there's value when you're just starting doing that, to pick one thing or to pick like 3 things that you're kind of playing around with, experimenting with. But then as you're developing your brand, that you become known for your skill sets. So for me, just to give an example, I'm skilled in speaking and talking with people. So I've started to monetize through that way. So it's not just, oh, I'm just kind of talking online and doing a brand partnership here and there, but I'm also hosting events. I'm also speaking on panels on behalf of brands and companies. So I'm monetizing what I'm uniquely good at. And it's still themed around the content that I'm creating online. But I want creators to become known for what they're great at and also what they're passionate about. And as a creator who considers themselves to be multi-passionate, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this are also multi-passionate, when you're told that you have to pick one thing or fit into a box, it feels very stifling and also overwhelming. What do I pick? Where do I focus on? Where do I stay? And so if you're kind of just starting out, my recommendation is pick like 2 to 3 things that you want to create content around. Again, if you're trying to develop a personal brand, the personal brand is all encompassing of what makes you you. And I guarantee you're not just made up of like one passion or one thing that you like or one skill, right? You're multifaceted. And so within that, pick those couple of things, experiment, explore within that. Maybe that does lead down a path of you kind of honing in on one of those things and becoming known as like the Amazon style person, or like the beauty for acne or makeup for acne, different things like that. Like it could be that one direction, or it could be, hey, I'm kind of more lifestyle and I'm talking about what my life looks like in this season through the realm of my skill set. So maybe you're really great at, again, speaking. So you're storytelling through that. Maybe you're really good at writing. So you decide to go the email newsletter or a blog route. Or maybe you're really great, honestly, at driving sales. And so you're like, let me focus on affiliate marketing and doing a lot of different links and conversion driving with the kind of content that I'm creating around. So there's a lot that we could go into with that, but I'll pause there because I could keep going on skill sets, but it's really just analyzing, like, what are you passionate about? What do you really enjoy? And if somebody was like, listen, could I pick your brain for just 30 minutes and get your thoughts on this? Look and analyze what the common themes or patterns are that people are asking you, whether it's a family friend or it's somebody in your audience, and using that as a baseline to figure out, okay, this is the kind of content that I could create around because I'm already being seen or known as being an expert or having advice or wisdom in XYZ area. So that's a great, easy way to start. If you're sitting here and you're like, I still don't know like where to start, like what 3 things to kind of pick, start there. And it's a really simple way to begin.
That's fantastic. And while we riff on that a little bit, through your journey, you've probably learned where the pitfalls are, and you've probably worked with some clients who've also learned where the pitfalls are. Any advice to the creators who are listening right now as they ramp up, as they get started? What are some of the pitfalls they want to avoid?
Yeah. Well, how much time do we have? I would say number 1, treating it as a hobby if you're wanting it to be a career. Even if it's not a career from the very beginning, have the mindset that it's a business from the start, because it's going to change the way that you show up. It's going to change the way that you invest in yourself, the way that you engage with your community. It changes everything, because the perception that you have when it's a hobby versus a career, very, very different. So I would say doing that. also getting so caught up in all of your numbers and what's the algorithm doing here and what are the analytics here and what are the likes, like just show up and experiment and explore and figure out, how do you even want to be perceived? What kind of personal brand are you wanting to build? Next to that, not showing up for the opportunities that you want long term. A lot of creators I've noticed have a very short term vision, short term focus. Okay, I want to just get to 10K, or I want to work with my first brand partner. That's not bad. Absolutely keep those on your vision board. However, where do you want to be 3 years from now? Where do you want to be 5 years from now? Goes back to point one. How are you viewing this as a career? Because you should be backing into whatever those long-term vision and goals are right now. So for example, if I want to speak, on stage at VidCon, for example, then I'm going to start showing up and creating content now that would position me as someone who would be hired for that opportunity. So when it comes to brand partnerships in any capacity, because I'm assuming you're also here because you're wanting to leverage your personal brand through monetizing with partnerships, then what kind of brands are you wanting to work with? How are you wanting to work with brands? And are you showing up in a way that if a brand sees your content, they're like, yes, we absolutely need to hire them. We'd be silly not to. Because if not, then you really need to reevaluate. So I think it's just also constant audits of the way that you're showing up, how you're showing up, not just saying, okay, I'm going to have to find one thing and stick to that for the rest of my creator career, but just being someone that's open to experimenting. That's a new one. That's going to be the new, new phrase here. Experimenting, and exploring
Sounds funny.
through content.
Yeah, and make up words if you want to too. Like, get
creative,
yeah, we're all creators.
Maybe I need to coin that. It's my new phrase. We're experimenting over here.
Experimenting, I like it. Yeah, TM.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. How important is it at that early stage to start building your community and your following, and like, tell us about that and what's that journey look like?
Yeah, so I love the word community over following. And so I think looking at it is, how are you building a community? When we get into verbiage, and I'm very mindful of the words we speak. One of my favorite quotes is, the words you speak become the house that you live in. And that can apply for anything. And I use it for business a lot too. Because when we say, okay, how can I get to X followers? How many followers can I have? Then it becomes very much a numbers game. And a lot of people that use the verbiage of follower and likes and they get caught up in the algorithm, it's because they're focused on, well, how many people can I get kind of in this sector? And if you switch your mindset and you switch your verbiage around looking at it as a community, as a targeted group of individuals that share common themes or passions that you do and value your opinion and your voice in the space in whatever capacity that you're showing up, it changes the way that you show up. It changes the way you look at your business. And in doing that, you're able to really focus on what matters, which is beyond the numbers. It's what kind of conversations are you driving? What kind of, conversations are you having in your DMs and your comments? It's not just like a likes thing, but the engagement goes beyond those vanity metrics. It turns into opportunities that you're receiving, different networking things, rooms that you're invited to be in. I've even seen, like, based on building certain community kind of offers, that you're getting to, like, go on a trip with a brand, right? Or get exclusive PR, or be invited to be an ambassador for them, because the brands are seeing, or companies are seeing, the very specific community that you have built. Because in my opinion, and having worked with a lot of brands, I have seen the value of having a more targeted community of like 1,000 to 2,000 people than 10,000 people that don't care about what you have to say and aren't commenting and aren't in your DMs and aren't engaging. And it's not really getting you anywhere outside of you checking off like the vanity metric of having 10,000 followers. So looking at it as a community, it is important to build that, not from a vanity perspective, but in order for brands to kind of be interested, like if you're wanting to go to the influencer realm, they're going to be looking at what kind of community do you have? How are they engaging with you? How are you engaging with them? What are those conversations looking like? And then as you're continuing to build, and let's say long-term, you want to write a book or start a podcast or be on a show or speak or do some of those things, like the community that you would be catering to, it does matter, but it needs to be targeted and intentional. The way you show up should be always intentional towards those specific people, not just like a random amount of X people, that just so you can, like, again, check that proverbial box off of having the vanity metric.
Yeah. And while we have you on metrics, and we'll get to opportunities in a second, what would you recommend? Like, we're from brands, creators, metrics on social media are always talked about, discussed, debated. What do you think are the most important metrics that creators should focus on today as they self-evaluate their progression?
Yeah. So I feel like I have a bit of a different perspective because the question is it for creators? Is it for brands? Like, when we're looking at metrics, what perspective are we looking at them for? But from a creator perspective, putting my like creator hat on, what matters most to me is conversation. So I'm looking at DMs behind the scenes. I'm always screenshotting DMs, especially if I'm like talking about a brand organically or sponsored. I'm screenshotting those. I'm sharing those with brands, right? Sometimes I'm DMing the brands those screenshots because they don't have public access to those things, but it shows that I'm driving conversations and it's leading to like engagement, even though it's not public. Also conversations in comments, where the comments always just like cute, love it. Not that that's bad. That's, go off. But are you actually like, are people asking questions? Are people engaging with you in, the CTA that you put in there? Are they like, hey, I love this. And this was really thought provoking. And it made me realize this, or this was encouraging. This was inspiring, or I learned something new, or I'm saving this so I could come back to it later, right? I'm looking at those things. I'm also looking at shares and saves, who's saving my content to come back to, who's sharing it with a friend or making fun of me. I don't know. Either way, you're sharing it. I'll take it. So engagement is engagement. So I'm looking at those things. And then I'm really big on showing up on stories. And that's a huge way that I've cultivated the community that I have now, because people feel like they know me. And I've always wanted to build a community online that if someone met me in person, they were like, oh my gosh, you're literally the same person, like in real life. Like there's kind of no difference. And so, good, bad, everything in between, I'm showing up on stories and I'm always asking questions and engaging and acting like I'm talking to one person. Even though it's thousands of people that are viewing it, who's that one specific person that I'm showing up and talking to? And that has really helped with the engagement of people responding, tapping in, answering polls. Like if I put a Q&A up on there, like they're, submitting different questions and things for like an ask me anything or stuff like that. Like those are the kinds of metrics that I'm personally looking at. And then I think just in general, like at a baseline, where's the engagement? Because from a monetization perspective, I'm also considering, okay, most brands want like at minimum a 1% engagement, usually like a 1.2, 1.5 plus, and ideally like in a 2% plus realm. Again, depends on obviously where your follower count is and stuff like that. But when it comes down to it, engagement is also something that, I'm considering, but I've never really been focused on overall how big the community is. I'm looking at what are the conversations that we're having within the community.
That makes a lot of sense, right? And it's really about the quality of that engagement as opposed to the pure numbers, right?
Yeah.
And I think, like we see similar things too. I mean, one of our best creators that has had the best performance only has a few thousand followers, but it's like high level of engagement,
Yeah.
lots of DMs, lots of likes, shares, that sort of thing. Let's switch gears a bit. So you've talked about personal brand, you've talked about building your community and your kind of areas of focus. Now it comes to like getting in front of brands and presenting yourself to those brands. That can be really intimidating for people, right? And so what do you recommend as a way to kind of get started?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people ask the question of, if I'm trying to get in touch with brands, should I just like shoot them a DM or should I send an email? What do I do? And I have a few different ideas that I'm happy to share on what that could look like, because it really depends on the status of the relationship. So for example, let's say that a creator has posted like organic content about the brand Celsius. I'm drinking an energy drink in front of me, so it's the brand we're going to use. Let's say they posted about, I'm always drinking Celsius before my workouts or to like get me through the day, and they're tagging them. And so you guys have been kind of in DMs back and forth. They're resharing your content. They're like, oh, love it. Like, awesome. You got to try our new flavor, blah, 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 right? If you've been having a conversation with a brand, going into DMs and being like, okay, I really want to work with him in like a paid capacity, or honestly, like just get me on the PR list because these things ain't cheap. Whatever it is, you can go and send them a DM and be like, hey, like I, just have been loving using the brand. Like this is my favorite flavor. I'd love to have an email of someone that I could reach out to and get in touch with to talk about other ways that we could partner together. then they can respond and be like, oh my gosh, yes, love that. Like, here's the direct person that you should reach out to. And ideally, they give you a direct contact. It's like Sarah at, Celsius.com. It's not like an info at or a hello at, because the goal is to get directly in front of the people who are making the decisions for partnerships. So it's going to be someone that's working in influencer marketing, like an influencer marketing manager, influencer marketing director, or if they're with an agency, someone agency side. So then you would take that and then you would send a pitch email. This is where people start freaking out because they're like, what do I put in this? Where do I send it? When do I send it? What do I say? And I think a lot of people overthink it. I think some people underthink it actually. And then a lot of people overthink it. And it's like finding the balance in between. So you don't want to underthink it by just sending a message and being like, hey, I'd love to work with you. Like, what's your budget? Or send me some stuff. Like, that's not giving any effort. We don't want to overdo it by giving them our entire life story of like, oh my gosh, like 5 years ago, I was walking down the street and I stumbled into a gas station and I found Celsius. And then I just, like, they don't care about any of that.
That's
so
why
you
I'm
kind
not
of,
getting it.
so you have to find like that happy middle ground. And my structure for pitches and what I'm always teaching creators is have it be a quick intro. Like, hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm a blank base. Like for me, I'm a Tampa, Florida based lifestyle creator that focuses on sharing XYZ content. Here's why I am a fan of Celsius, and here's how it's like impacted me for whatever brand this is. This goes across literally any brand in any industry or niche. You want to explain why you have a personal like affinity for that brand. Why do you like them? Why do you use them? Like, it literally can just be a sentence, but it has to be personalized. It shouldn't just be, I like your brand. I think it's cool. I want free stuff, because every other influencer is doing that. So you want to stand out. And then the key is I always recommend sending over like 2 to 3 different partnership ideas of how you could directly activate with that brand. So if it's like a reel showing a day in the life, or it's like, come with me, on my next, weightlifting day, and like it's featuring Celsius, right? Like, how are they actually integrating? Make it easy for them to say yes to you. And then you want to end with like some really great stats. So if you have an amazing engagement rate, or you just went viral for like talking about the brand, right? And the organic reach is insane. Or you're doing a new series and you want them to be a part of it because you're planning on featuring them anyway. We want to mention that, but just be like, listen, you got to be part of this series. So whatever that ends up being, add in those ideas. And then you want to give those stats and then leave with a call to action. It could be happy to send over my media kit with more examples. It could be like happy to hop on like a 15-minute introductory call just to like get to know you more and hear more about like campaigns that you're running. Or it could be, looking forward to hearing from you, if like, chatting over email. Like, end with a call to action, and then that's it. Like, it's not that difficult really. But I think, again, people either like really don't put any effort in, or they put way too much effort in, and then it gets like lost in the chaos of an inbox. So I always recommend emailing, and then making sure you're doing follow-ups too, because a lot of people will stop at the pitching and they'll just send the pitch, and then they'll come back and they'll be like, oh my gosh, the brand never answered. And I'm like, okay, so when did you follow up? And they're like, I'm like, okay, go send like a follow-up, So you got to send a follow-up. We'll send anywhere from like 2 to 3, depending on, the brand and how badly like our creators, or as a creator myself, I'm wanting to work with them. And those are very simple too. Like, hey, just like kindly checking in on the proposal, would love to like execute on some of these ideas. Don't like, make it sound like you. Be professional, but don't be stuffy about it either, because as a creator, like, you want them to understand they're talking to you as an individual and as a person. So send the follow-ups, and that's how we get in front of brands. And then obviously also being here with Creator, like joining Creator, being on an influencer marketing platform that will directly connect you with the brand. So I don't recommend only ever doing like outreach through pitching, but join Creator, be on the platform, and directly get connected with brands that are looking to hire creators like you and are actively sourcing and casting for different campaign opportunities. Make sure you do both. Don't put all your eggs in one basket ever. So just get where brands are, and brands are on Creator.
Amazing. Well, thanks for that plug. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I wasn't paid to say it.
And, obviously we're connecting brands and creators together. So like you said, it's a great platform to be able to do that.
So we want to touch base, like, once you send out the request to collaborate, and you've had a couple of follow-ups, it's likely that the brand is checking your socials and stuff like that. How do you prop up your socials and prepare for the brand to kind of investigate more about who you are, your content?
Yeah.
What would you recommend for creators to have, make sure their feed looks good, so that brands are interested in replying and prioritize that reply?
Yeah, absolutely. So one, brands, and correct me if I'm wrong, y'all, because I know y'all are on that side too, but what I'm noticing from brands and the conversations that we're having, and also just having been a creator, is they're looking to see if there's any organic content that you've already done about that brand. I know a lot of creators, there's a lot of like hoopla in the space, people being like, well, I'm not going to give no free content to any brands if they're not paying me. It's like, okay, hold on. You have to think again, if we think if we're seeing our personal brand and the way we're showing up online as a digitization of our reputation, and we see it as a resume opportunity, that's like saying, well, I'm not going to walk into the job and let them know about previous experience I've had. That makes no sense. So you should be showing organically, even if it's like a simple story. This doesn't have to be a whole, high quality production reel. It could be. It could be, because you never know what that could lead to, but it could be something as simple as like stories, and maybe you add those to a highlight and it's some of your favorite like beauty products or fashion products, like whatever brands you're kind of wanting to partner with. But showcasing that organically, you're already talking about these brands. The brands are also checking, like, do you follow them? Like something so simple, but like, do you follow them? Like, have you ever posted about them before? Because they can see the messages between the two of you. It's like so awkward when I hear creators are like, there's so many horror stories. Like, you reach out to a brand, you're not even following them. That's so awkward. So don't do that. And then also just like making sure your bio looks good, that it's not, like a mess, to be honest, just to keep it real. Some bios are really messy. Like, it should be very clear, very concise on who you are, what you talk about. Your email should be in your bio as well. Ideally, where you're locationally based should be in there, because that plays a role for a lot of different campaigns. Make sure you have like some cohesive highlight covers. Like, just make sure like aesthetically things look good. Aesthetically overall, things have moved away and kind of become more like organic and raw and real. And it's not the Instagram, 10 years ago is not what it is now, but there should be a semblance of consistency on your platform that gives off a level of professionalism, because brands are looking for that. If you're kind of all over the place and it's like really chaotic to look at your stuff, or, the quality of your content is, there's much to be wished for there. Maybe consider like, just rub off the phone screen a little bit before you film or something, like you don't got to go get a super nice camera or anything, but like putting effort into your content in that regard, making sure that it's, you can hear yourself clearly. If you're talking in a voiceover or storytelling to camera, you can see yourself clearly. It's not like fuzzy or blurry, or like things are moving around too fast in like a non-aesthetic way. So just things like that. Those are some of the things that come top of mind.
Yeah. And you know what, like quality consistency is super important. I think something that we hear a lot from brands too is they want authenticity, right? They really want that creator to be authentic in the way that they're delivering the message and talking about that product. Can help us understand that a little bit. Why is that important?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, people want to work with people, and when you're having someone promote your products or services, the whole reason influencer marketing blew up is because it didn't feel like the celebrity endorsements. It didn't feel like, J-Lo's like, yeah, I love this anti-aging cream. It's like, girl, listen, we don't even need to go. We know you have a great Botox, girl. Okay. Let's not like people don't trust them as much because they know how much money that they're getting for certain things. And so it's not, like an easy sell. It's not like, oh, my friend so-and-so like talked to me about this product and recommended it and like sent me the Amazon link and I bought it. Right. So influencers became like that friend that'll send the link, or is, sharing the clothes, the beauty product or the hair product or whatever. And you trust them. There's a level of trust. And so that's what authenticity breeds. Like you being yourself and saying, listen, this product changed my life and let me tell you why. But you're not trying to be like, selling it necessarily. You're just organically talking about how it made a difference, or, why you just really enjoy it. And because of that, it allows for like ads to go a lot better. Like if we're talking about like an ROI perspective, that's why, whitelisting, where brands have been putting money behind creators' content instead of, doing these full production shoots. It's because people just trust it more, and it's a familiar face, right? Like using someone's name, image, and likeness, especially if they're known to a certain community, then people are like, oh my gosh, well, I trust their recommendations, or I trust what they have to say because like they've never steered me wrong. But we just don't have the same trust for celebrities the way we do for, hopefully a lot of influencers, if influencers are maintaining the trust of their audience by being authentic. But it just makes for even better storytelling. At the end of the day, what we're doing and what we should be doing as creators is storytelling through our own unique lens based on our own perspective and experiences. And if we're doing that well, we're going to naturally garner trust with our community. And then that brings value to brands that are trying to get in with that community because we're serving their ideal demographic. And then that eventually leads to, partnerships. I feel like we can make a graphic about that, but like it just all starts with truly like, where's the trust? And trust comes from people being authentic.
Totally. So Jennifer Aniston isn't glowing because of a vino.
Listen, I'll tell you what.
So dropping a vino.
Yeah.
So you talked about getting your feed set up and really positioning it as a bit of a resume. Just a quick, to switch gears a little bit, any tools that you recommend for we're not trying to plug creator, but like tools that you use to make your feed look better, to make images look better as a creator and as someone who works actively with creators? What are some of the tools that, high level stick out to you that are necessary for aspiring creators to use or try?
Yeah, so you need a good video editing app. So I use InShot. A lot of people use CapCut. InShot has just kind of been my thing, but I know CapCut has a great desktop app as well. If you're wanting to get like really crazy, it's like Premiere, I think, is the one that all the fancy people use. I ain't that fancy. Give me my iPhone and I'm good. So good video editing app, good photo app. I use Tezza for editing photos or Lightroom. You want to have those. And then for planning the feed out, I really wish Instagram gave you a grid planner actually in the feed. Like, please, Instagram, Meta, help us out. But because of not having that, yeah, hello. So because of not having that, we'll use like a Planoly or a Later. There's Metricool, Rella, like different social media apps that you can use to actually plan out the grid. So you can make sure that there is some like level of aesthetic if that's important to you, and that's important to like your long-term vision and the brands that you're trying to work with. So use those. And then I also mentioned like Metricool, Rella, and Later are some of like the top social media scheduling apps. I have not had the best luck with scheduling directly in Instagram. I know that's an option, but for me, it always seems to glitch. It's not like that for everyone. If it works for you, great, use that. So you don't have to have another app, but it hasn't worked for me. And I don't want to be sitting here in real time posting every single piece of my content. So I like batch create and then batch edit. So I do a lot of content in one sitting, and then I will schedule that into, we use Rella right now, and we'll schedule it into there, which is like a social media tool that allows you to plug it in there, and then it will push out and go live whenever you want it to. And it's nice because of someone who shows up on multiple platforms, like I'm on LinkedIn, Threads, TikTok, Instagram, like about to add a podcast, like all these different things. Like I need a tool that I can put in there and like blast out content versus having to manually sit there and do everything. So those are some of the things like in terms of content creation that I'm using on the daily.
Cool. Thanks for that breakdown. That's awesome.
Yeah, fantastic. I think one of the things that I wanted to touch on, you've talked about Instagram, like walk us through like the different platforms that, the social media platforms that are out there. And like, there's a lot about TikTok right now, and is TikTok up or is it not? And, I think it was down for 20 hours and then came back up. Like, do you recommend that people like distribute content across multiple platforms or kind of focus on one? What's your take on that?
Yeah. So my take is actually that nobody just shows up on social media to begin with, because anyone who has an account on social media, that's rented space. You don't own it. Things that you would own would be a website, an email list, a podcast, a blog. Like those kinds of things are things that you own, and you can have a domain. You can have, whether or not social media is around, you have access to your community on there. So I always recommend to all creators, don't put all your eggs in the one basket of social media. And while like I got a lot of heat for this when the whole TikTok ban was going on, because I was like, listen, I recognize that this is hitting a lot of people's livelihoods, and I have a lot of empathy for that because we have clients too that make a lot of money on TikTok, a lot of people that make money on TikTok Shop. And so that's a huge hit. I said, this is also a great learning opportunity though, and this is what people didn't like to hear, is that you should be diversifying even off of social media. That if you're putting all your eggs in the basket of that, you have no control over whether or not it is here today, gone tomorrow, and then so is your entire community and the business that you have built. So if you're going to show up and build a personal brand, you need to have places that you own. And so it could be just one of those things, but have something beyond just social media. Now, in terms of showing up on social media, I do recommend like diversifying the platforms. I think having a short form platform like a TikTok or an Instagram Reels that you're showing up, and then having a long form like YouTube, or for some people it's a podcast, is really great, because number one, it's going to make content easier because you can take the long form content and split it down into short form. But it also is going to allow the community that prefers either kind of a quick scroll and going through things versus a community that prefers kind of sitting there and like, watching your video as they're getting ready in the morning or they're winding down at night. Like there's options for them. They're not limited to only engaging with you in a short form or a long form sense. So with that, you also want to make sure that if you're going to take kind of the same piece of content and diversify it on different platforms, that you're adhering to what that platform well receives. So for example, we take a lot of my Reels content and we repurpose it for Threads content. But Threads is text-based. You can use photos on there, you could use videos, but it doesn't perform nearly as well as text. So we'll usually take captions, or we'll take the transcript of the educational videos that I teach on Instagram Reels, and we'll put that into text, like multiple different threads. Like we could probably make anywhere from 15 to 20 threads per one piece of Instagram content I put out. So we've kind of have like a system with that too. I know LinkedIn is like the place to be right now. More creators need to be leveraging LinkedIn. It is like going to be the hot spot, honestly, this year. We're going to see a massive like freaking LinkedIn revolution, honestly. Listen, I don't know. It's very interesting to see, but it's not all professionals. I think there's like a misconception that it's all professionals, but it's a lot of creators now. And they're like, LinkedIn's really working on their video feed. So I could see that. I see it more as like Instagram, but a different platform than TikTok, because TikTok's really all video. But with Instagram, you still have like heavy text related pieces of content. And LinkedIn is now, promoting their video content. They're like releasing a ton of features with that. So what we've been doing is taking my reels and posting those on LinkedIn, and then taking the caption and posting it on there as well. And the impressions and like the reach that we've been getting through that has been crazy. So we also will like, again, change up the verbiage or make it like more kind of like 3 tips and stuff. So we've been playing around with a lot of that too, but it's not just like taking a piece of content and just like slapping it on every platform. Like you have to adhere to like what the platform is about and how it receives content, and making sure you're following those guidelines as well.
Awesome. Yeah. Really good insights. And, that's interesting about LinkedIn. Obviously that you immediately think about it as like a place to connect professional to professional and, do career building and building out your network. But you're saying it actually is becoming more of a creator platform.
LinkedIn is apparently starting to reward more creators for posting, but I just did my first ever like LinkedIn brand partnership at the end of last year. And I have more slated for this year. And they're
with LinkedIn?
Yes.
Congrats. That's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah. But I was like, what do you mean? When I got the email, I was like, hold on. And then I started thinking, oh my gosh, I need a pitch for more LinkedIn opportunities, because, I've built a decent audience on there as well, but it's a very targeted audience. So for a lot of the creator economy related brands, they're like, listen, you have like this really specific targeted community on LinkedIn of our ideal people that like want this tech or want this platform or, want to know about this service or something. And so I've been getting paid very well for LinkedIn brand partnerships, which is crazy. And they enjoy like the videos, but also even just getting paid for like text related posts where we're tagging them. But we have like the brand partnership tool on LinkedIn now as well. It's very interesting. I think that's going to be a huge thing. I think long form, like if I had to make predictions for this year, because we're recording this at the beginning of January 2025, my prediction for this year is LinkedIn is going to be like massive by the end of this year for creators. Like creators should get in now on LinkedIn if they want kind of like an opportunity. I think like in terms of TikTok, like we're in the very early stages and LinkedIn is going to pop off this year. So getting in early for LinkedIn. And second, I think long form content's making a massive comeback. So YouTube is making a huge comeback. People are going to leverage YouTube shorts just because we've been in like a short form video mindset for so many years. But long form YouTube is coming back. And I think podcasts are going to be the secondary long form that's coming back.
Wow. 2 big predictions for 2025.
Yeah, we'll have to check back in.
First, that's right.
Between 2 ferns.
Between 2 ferns. We're going to come back January 2026 and we're going to see how you did on your predictions.
Yeah, we'll have to.
Yeah. You touched a little bit on payment and you know and how you're being compensated. Talk to us a little bit about, you know, how you win those deals without obviously disclosing too much information personally, but how do you win those deals? How do you negotiate with brands? How do you get the deals that you do, get the deals for your clients that you do, and really help the brands understand the value that creators bring? And that's something that, you know, we at Creator face on a regular basis, is conveying the value that creators bring beyond necessarily just the sale.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to value, I mean, we are pulling in a lot of stats because it's irrefutable data. You know, like if they have conversions, if they have any data on that, like a lot of times when brands are looking at conversions, yes, we can pull link clicks, but we're also looking at, you know, let's go into their like to know it or their Amazon affiliate account and see, like, for that brand, how many sales have they driven? Or in general, for like the beauty category or the fashion category, like on average, what does their conversion look like on a month to month basis? So we're pulling data like that. If they've also done previous partnerships in an affiliate capacity and they've had like a UTM link with a brand or a code with a brand, we're always following up for that data as well. So we can see, again, like, how are the conversions and how can we use this for future opportunities with other brands when we're trying to justify, like, yeah, our creator maybe is a little bit more in this area, or maybe you're like not understanding why it needs to be that rate or why we're trying to negotiate for higher. And we're able to come in with the data, not just say like, no, it's not just like an agency side thing because she's signed to management, right? Or it's not just because we're trying to, like, you know, pull a fast one on you or something. Like, there's actual data that comes into why we've gotten these numbers, and it's higher than the average conversions in this, you know, community size or for this kind of, you know, level of content, whatever. Like, it's higher than average. And so, yeah, that's going to require, you know, more compensation. So we're looking at things like that. And then also, you know, it's really interesting. Creator rates are truly the Wild West. I know that there is, you know, a lot of tables out there of, well, if you have X amount of people in your community, then charge this. If you have X amount, charge this. And it's not that those are all absolutely terrible. Some of them actually are pretty terrible, but most of them are like just trying to give somewhat of a baseline that just people can follow, because there isn't a tried and true baseline that really exists as of right now in this space. But my issue with those is that might take into account like your audience size, you know, or how, your average engagement, but it doesn't take into account additional things like exclusivity or usage rights or whitelisting or all the, like, a super fast turnaround time because you want the content tomorrow, and also my firstborn child with it because I don't know why, like, you need everything right this second. So things like that, like rush fees, like, you know, it's a very busy time of the year. Like, we have a couple of girls right now that are expecting their, you know, they're a kid. And so the timeline in which they have available to make content is a lot more limited. So like just common supply and demand, right? Like that's going to change rates sometimes too. So we're always open to negotiating with brands, and we're always trying to have just like a very honest and transparent conversation and say, listen, this is where we would need to be at. Totally understand if that doesn't work for you, but how could we maybe adjust deliverables to be more, you know, aligned with what you're able to offer budget wise and what she's able to offer content wise. But I think negotiation is just one big conversation, and it is a two-way street. And at the end of the day, like, we're always open to being flexible and like having that conversation, as long as brands are willing to do that too and not have unrealistic expectations of what they're going to get based on what their budget is.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I mean, you're a wealth of knowledge and information, and I mean, we could talk all day. I know you have a hard stop. I know you're a busy business person and creator yourself. You know, and one of the things that we wanted to mention is that we've developed a whole masterclass with you that, you know, that covers this and much more. And we'll share some details with you know, with people viewing about that after the summit. If you had to give one piece of advice to an aspiring creator, somebody that's just getting going, what would that one piece of advice be?
Let me get my pen.
Man, that's a good one. I would say to never lose your joy in creating, that we can get very focused on numbers and the business side of things, and all of that is important, you know, and I hope that through this conversation, there are a lot of tangible and actionable items that you take away and that you apply that kind of, you know, build momentum forward for you in your business. But if you're sitting here and you're only ever focusing on the business side and you've kind of lost your joy for creating, it might be time to kind of experiment and explore with different avenues and change things up and kind of find that passion again. Because you want to be passionate at the end of the day. You should be enjoying what you're doing and how you're showing up. And so, you can hear all the tips and get all the strategy in the world, but if at the end of the day, you're not finding joy in what you're creating, then that's the biggest audit that I would do. I spent a lot of years continuing to create in areas that I didn't really feel aligned with because it was what other people expected to see from me. And it wasn't until I said, you know what do I actually enjoy and how do I want to show up? And what does authenticity look like for me in this new season as I've grown, even just as an individual, not even as a business person, but as an individual? How have I grown and what do I want to show up and kind of start creating around? And I made a massive pivot 2 years ago and I have so much more joy creating now. I thought I hated content creation. I didn't hate content creation. I hated the type of content I was creating about. So I think that would be a big, piece of advice is to find joy. And if you don't have joy, audit why you don't, and don't be afraid to pivot.
Amazing. That's not only great advice for creators, that's just great
Life
advice
advice.
in life.
Life advice between two ferns.
Yeah, between two ferns.
Yeah. That's awesome, Kahlea. We really appreciate your time hanging out with us here and going through this masterclass and talking to all the creators here, viewing through the ClickBank platform. Great speaking with you. And as Rob alluded to, there's a ton more of information that's been created and to a very robust course that we'll be sharing the details with you guys.
Yes.
Thanks,
stay
Kahlea.
tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Thank you for having me.
Thank
All
you so
right.
much for joining. Really appreciate it. Thanks to the ClickBank team as well for having us. We really appreciate being with all of you.